We're back with Lonnie Talbert, and we're talking to him about his campaign run, and we're going to take it back from where we left off as far as why you got in. So I know we discussed a little bit of that, and we're talking about your experience that you bring from the private sector and stuff. I know that's going to help you tremendously, and then I know you had a lot of people kind of advise you a little bit on what the job exactly is, and so. And I think you're very eager to get into that position now. So, what sort of differences do you think you could make personally at this stage with the economy the way it is right now with the recession and everything? Talk a little bit about that as far as New Mexico being included in that recession.
Sure. I think that the opportunity as a pro-business candidate, as a pro-business commissioner who has worked in the private sector his entire career, can bring a unique perspective, and that is one that understands what the small business owner is going through, what the large corporation is going through, what the people that are out there looking for jobs is going through. I've been in each one of those different segments and sectors in the New Mexico economy as well as outside of New Mexico. And I've talked to many business owners and business leaders in the community through my nonprofit work and business work. And they all keep saying the same thing. We need to have a business-friendly environment. We need to have an environment that is conducive to creating jobs, not just maintaining the ones we have, which is critical. Retention right now is incredibly important too.
Do you think we became not so friendly to to business in general?
Well, I think that we haven't always been with our tax structure. I don't think we've always been as friendly as we could be. I think if you look at some of the states around us, Texas and Arizona, and even Nevada during the heyday, we were growing very well because of our construction jobs, and we had a number of private sector jobs as well come in through call centers as well as the labs.
Mm-hmm.
But because we're so heavily government funded here in this state, when that dries up a lot of times and we start to see some of those jobs leave, then it stresses the entire economy within. So I think diversity within our economy is important. But I also want to work closely to make sure that I'm working with the city councilors, and with our legislators to make sure that we have a cohesive, sort of collaborative way that we look at business development, economic development, and how we all work together to make sure that we're not duplicating our efforts, but actually honing our efforts holistically so that we're successful as an entire state, county, and city, so that not any one group gets too far ahead or any one group gets too far behind, but that we all work together. And I think that is another unique perspective.
Right.
Being in the private sector, that's how you get success, collaboration.
Yeah. Your district is pretty large, right? It's
Right.
District 4. The decisions you make affect the entire state. And I think a lot of people fail to understand that.
Right.
They don't understand that commissioners make decisions that affect the entire state. Talk a little bit about your own district, District 4, and what you bring, what you would like to do for your district, and then the rest of the state as far as business goes and
Sure.
the other issues there.
Yeah, I mean, as a county commissioner, my district goes, from the west side all the way up to the foothills in the Northeast Heights, and goes south over to Academy and comes down through parts of Los Ranchos.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very long, but it's also very diverse in the needs of each of the constituents. And I think one thing I want to make sure is that we're looking at the services that are required, not only in the district, but that are required in the county, that we're taking a more strategic approach, and that we're not being just really reactive, but we're taking the time to actually plan. And so making sure that the services we have on the west side, specifically where there's been a lot of growth recently, that the infrastructure needs are met there,
Mm-hmm.
and that the service requirements and programs are met there. But not also taking for granted that because the Northeast Heights seems to have a number of services, that they also are treated fair and equally as well. And then making sure that I'm working closely with the city councilors so that we're not duplicating efforts, but actually putting our efforts in lockstep. And then also that we're talking to the legislators that are within my district to make sure they understand and I understand their needs. And I've been doing some of that as well now as I start to get ready to take office, saying, okay, exactly how can I help you? How can you help me? How can we help the entire district and help the entire county?
What sort of questions do you get when you were out, especially when you were out on the streets, when you were campaigning? What were the concerns of your constituents at that point? What were they concerned about the most?
I heard a lot about accountability in government. I heard a lot about making sure that we keep our property taxes low. Jobs. A lot of people
They
were
worry
worried
about
about the
jobs
economy.
mostly.
Worried about the economy, worried about what Bernalillo County was going to do to help, worried about what the city was and the state. So it really was, again, across the entire spectrum. But making sure that the county commissioners were accountable and transparent, that they respected, that I respected the office, and that I respected them as constituents. I think a lot of times we get into office and we forget why we're
Correct.
there.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do that. I can't do that. My family won't let me. My friends won't let me. I won't let me.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I always remember why I'm sitting there, and that's because I was elected, and I'm a servant, and I need to make sure that the issues I'm focused on are going to be good for everyone. That doesn't mean everyone's happy on any given day, but it sure means that everyone understands exactly why we're doing what we do.
The project of Paseo, and I know it's coming up. They were trying to put it on the ballot.
Right.
The mayor was trying to. I know that, I'm sure, and that's part of your district, I think.
It is.
Talk a little
Right
bit
through
about
the heart
that.
of it.
Yeah, talk a little bit about the Paseo project. I know there are people, again, when you were talking to people, were there a lot of people against it, for it? What did you
Everyone I
find
talked
out?
to was for it. I
So
mean,
they're wanting to change
it is a
it.
major thoroughfare, not only in our state,
Yeah.
but also specifically in our district, which sits right in the county, which is part of the city. And everyone understands that the time wasted in traffic, the time wasted in trying to get from point A to point B, you don't get that back. No one gets that back. And having just come back from Los Angeles, where traffic is 24/7,
Exactly.
so much time is wasted. I am for the Paseo project. We need to fund it. We need to work together with the city and the state and with all the constituents across to understand really why we're doing it. I think a lot of times we miss that explaining it.
Correct.
Let's sit down and just say, this is why it's needed. Let's share the facts and data. Let's not take it for granted that people understand why. And let's be out there in front of it.
Why do you
I'm
think
going to
the-
support it always.
Why do you think the Paseo project was delayed to this point? I mean, there was a necessity for this project so many years back.
Right.
I remember going through there even 10 years, 15 years ago, even when the Big Eye was being done. We had,
Right.
do you think it was all about the money? Do you think there was an opposition to it as far as the construction itself?
Yeah.
I mean, you would think it's a necessity, but
Sure.
then there's that opposition. City Council, they were short one. I didn't understand what that was about, but then it would have been, now it's going on the ballot. And then I think there's some legal issues there, whether the mayor can put it on the ballot.
Right.
So do you think that it is, as far, I know you're not an attorney, but do you think we are able to put it on the ballot for November 6th?
Well, I've heard that the county can actually put it on the ballot, that
Okay.
if the city's not allowed. But again, I haven't validated that. Someone's just mentioned that, well, the county could put it on the ballot, and the county could have it as one of the issues to have voted on. Getting back to your question, why didn't we do it? I don't know. I moved here, and when I was chair of the Chamber of Commerce, we were talking then about the Paseo project and about that it was going to cost $275 million.
Yeah, we've been talking about it
And
for a long time.
that we needed to get 4 counties to work together to say
Correct.
this is why this is important right now for our entire state. And we just couldn't move it forward. I think anytime decisions this large come into play, politics get involved, and I really want to hope and help that we can move forward from that. I'm not naive to think that that's going to change overnight, but that's part of that strategic planning I talked
Correct,
about.
yeah.
Things today will never be cheaper in the future. So we need to be prepared to say, okay, what is it going to cost? Let's get it done. Let's get it done now, because the benefits are we're going to continue to grow. It may not be at the time we think, but our population isn't going to shrink. We're going to keep growing, and infrastructure is critical to growth.
Do you think, as and I think as a New Mexican, do you feel that we should focus on population growth or economic growth?
Economic growth and population growth as well, because as population grows, we have to look out into the future in terms of at what level is that population? Is it births? Is it people transferring into our state? Is it just normal growth from businesses growing and population growing? But I think economic growth is what's critical right now, making sure we have economic-based jobs and making sure that as we grow our businesses that we understand where they're growing, what part of the county, what part of the state, so that we have the infrastructure necessary and ready for that growth.
Okay. We're going to take a few short break, and we'll come
Great.
back and we'll talk. We'll be right back.